morning. What I'd like to do today is give you a little video tutorial into the basics of embedding things. In this case, we're going to be focusing on embedding things into a PBWorks Wiki because that's the platform that lots of people at my own school use, but the same basic rules apply if you want to embed something in a different sort of wiki like wiki spaces, or perhaps a blog, a blogger blog, or even a website that you're creating from scratch using HTML or maybe even using a Dreamweaver. So the same basic rules apply. So basically, what is embedded? Embedding, in short, is taking content, usually your own content, that appears elsewhere on the internet, another Web 2.0 service like Blogster or Prezi or something like that, and embedding it in your web page so that people do not have to go trucking all over the internet to find your content. You can collect it all in one centralized location. This is excellent for student work, if students want to hand things in on your wiki, or if you want to collect things together for the purposes of sharing with students, parents, or colleagues. It's always great to collect everything together in one spot so that you don't have to go send people scavenger hunting around the internet to find things. This is particularly useful, of course, for kids who can get lost or distracted in that process. So collecting everything together in one spot is a very useful and very practical way of doing things. So embedding allows you to do that. So what can you embed? Well, the short answer is there are dozens and dozens and dozens of services all over the internet that are compatible with embedding. You're going to have to look things up on a sort of case-by-case basis. But you'll notice I have a few popular ones embedded on my front page. I've got Blogster, which is like multimedia posters, embedded here with all the links and functionality working. I've got a YouTube video embedded right here. I've got my Twitter feed is embedded right here. And over on my sidebar, I even have my Delicious tags. Delicious is a social bookmarking service. So this actually allows people to access all of my online resources. And again, it's collected all on one page, which makes it very, very useful. Now, how do you go about doing this? Basically what you do is you take a little bit of HTML code. HTML is the language that most websites are created with, so you're taking a little bit of HTML code from one place, from YouTube for example, and you're bringing it back into PBWorks and you're pasting it in the appropriate spot. Now, don't panic. You don't actually have to know HTML in order to successfully pull this off. It really doesn't require any technical skill at all beyond being able to copy and paste things accurately. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So I thought I'd start by just doing an example. The example we'll start with, since lots of people here use Google Apps, is we'll start with embedding a presentation into a wiki. So I guess the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip back to PBWorks and I'm going to create a brand new page. So if you were a student and you wanted to embed a project, you would first create a page. This assumes, of course, that your teacher's given you permission to create pages and that you've logged in, and if you're not logged in, obviously you can't create pages. So all of that basic stuff aside, you're going to want to create your own page. My Google presentation, very creatively named. I'm going to create the page, and right now it's a blank page. So now I'm going to flip over to my other tab, and I'm going to have a look at this Google presentation that I have already saved in my Google Docs. Now, there are two steps in the case of Google Docs to successfully embedding it. The first is just double checking your share settings, and you can see that I already have this set as a public document. So if you want people to be able to view this, even embedded, so that's something important to remember, the privacy and permission settings on the original website usually carry over to the destination site, so it's really important that you check your sharing settings. This is set to public. In the case of Google Docs, there's a second step, and that's coming over here and going to publish to the web. And when I click Start Publishing and go OK, one of the things it offers me is an embed code. Now, different services store their embed codes in different spots. So there is no hard and fast rule. It's usually in the same spot where all the other sharing is. So where you get your links, where you post things to YouTube, where you send the link out on Twitter, usually the embed code is to be found in the precise same spot. Now, like a lot of other embedded services, you have the option to change some of the parameters. How big do you want it to be? In this case, I can choose how quickly the slides advance. Does it automatically start or not? And you'll notice every time I choose one of these parameters, I don't know if you're noticing this here, but some of the parameters in this code here change. So what it's doing is I'm giving Google the parameters and then it's changing the code, which is just to reinforce the fact that you don't need to know how to write code yourself. So once I've got everything how I like it, I am going to very carefully copy this entire code. Now, this is the one spot where you really got to be careful. Because it's computer code, leaving off even this little bracket at the end, if you forget to copy that and copy everything else but the little sort of triangle bracket at the end, the code isn't going to work. So it's really, really important that you copy the embed code in its absolute complete entirety. So I'm going to do that just by copying. I'm going to close this. I'm going to flip back to PBWorks. Now, in PBWorks, they give you a bunch of different options for inserting stuff. By and large, you can get away with always inserting stuff in a general sort of HTML box. So I'm going to enter the code here just by pasting it. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Allow JavaScript button. Now, every service is different, and you can't expect teachers in particular to know which services run on Java and which services don't. I always click this button just to be sure. So then I go Next, and then I go Insert Plugin, and it puts the little green box, which contains the code, as a sort of placeholder. You're not going to see the presentation actually function until you hit the save, and then hopefully, after a second, you'll see that the Google presentation appears in its entirety on the website with all of the things that I had, the automatic slide advance and all of that seems to be functioning, so that's great. Now, before we leave Google stuff behind, it's important to note that pretty much anything in the Google Apps sort of suite can be embedded. A straight-up document can be embedded, a form, a spreadsheet. You can embed a Google Calendar, which is particularly useful for educators and students, I think. So most things in the Google suite can be embedded. So that's extremely useful in a school setting, particularly in our school because we subscribe to the whole Google Apps program. So let's leave Google behind a little bit, go back to the main page, and I'll give you another example using another popular service, YouTube. And again, we'll just do this very, very quickly. I'll just go YouTube, embed, to create a page. I will flip over to a YouTube video that I've already got queuing up here. This is something that I've created. YouTube is actually one of those situations where you don't have to own the content in order to embed it. You could go to any YouTube page and grab an embed code, so that's great. But this one, in this particular example, happens to be something that I've created. So, like I said before, what you're going to be looking for is, where is the share button? Okay, here it is. So I click on the share button, and it gives me, hopefully in a moment, several different options. It gives me a straight up link. It gives me options Facebook, Twitter, but of course it also gives me an embed code. And if I scroll down a little bit more, you'll notice that it does, like in the case of Google Presentations, it gives me some other parameters that I can deal with as well. I can set the size of the screen and various other things. And again, just like before, every time I change the parameters, it automatically changes the code for me, which is extremely useful. So I go over here. Again, I'm just going to copy the code in its entirety, and I'm going to flip back to the page and go up to my Insert menu. Now, YouTube is something where they often provide you a custom box. Here's the YouTube box. Find the video you want on YouTube, copy the embed code or the URL, and paste it here. So in this case, PBWorks makes it a little bit easier for you. You don't actually have to paste the embed code. You can actually, in this particular situation, just copy the address, and it ought to work as well. But if you like to adjust the parameters, the screen size, and all of that, you're going to want to use the proper embed code, which I'm doing. Paste it in. Next. Gives me a little demo here, so that's good. It's pulling up the video we want. So I'm going to insert it. Again, you're only going to see the placeholder screen until you hit save. And then hopefully in a moment or two, you're going to see the video embedded right on the page. So, what have we talked about today? The basics of embedding are very, very simple. You are grabbing an embed code from a service that provides it. Finding it in some cases might be a little tricky. You're copying it in its entirety, making sure that you don't leave anything behind. You're creating or editing a PBWorks page, and then simply going to the Insert button and go to Insert HTML, and you can paste it here. Now you'll notice when I just repeated my steps there, I didn't actually paste the YouTube video into the specific YouTube button. But like I said before, it doesn't really matter. That general HTML box will cover virtually any kind of HTML code. So it's super useful. You can use it just like that. A couple other things to remember when you are embedding things is that, of course, the thing that you're embedding doesn't have to be the only thing on the page. You can very easily go in here and enter some text. You want to have some response questions so that students watch the video and then answer the questions. Or for a student project, you might have a video at the top and some additional information down below. So the object doesn't have to be the only thing on the page. You can add some text. You can even add other embeddable objects. Obviously, you saw on my front page, I have several things embedded. One last tip, of course, is that all of these different objects, YouTube, Glogster, Twitter, all of these things are pulling content from different parts of the internet. So one thing you're going to want to be a little bit careful of is not to embed too many things on the same page. Now you'll notice I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things embedded on this front page, and it works just fine. But you can imagine if you were doing a student project and you had 30 different videos and YouTube had to stream 30 different videos onto a single page, you would probably run into problems with playback. They wouldn't load properly just because there'd be too many things going on one page. So if you get into a situation where some things are loading up and not others, it may be a question of overloading your page with too many objects at once. So that's one final thing to keep in mind, particularly for teachers who may be inclined to try and put 25 student projects on one page. My personal advice is to get students to create their own page and have them take responsibility for the process of embedding. In some cases, depending on their age, they may require a little bit of support with this, but I think in the 21st century, being able to submit your work to a class webpage or blog or wiki is a pretty basic skill for students, so they should be able to take responsibility for it. So I hope you found this sort of very basic set of instructions useful. It gives you a little bit of a head start and some ideas on how you can incorporate this into your class homepage or into some pretty interesting and innovative student projects. As we fade to black here, I'm going to roll just a sort of small list of just the stuff off the top of my head of a few services and websites that allow embedding, just to sort of get the creative juices flowing for you about some of your options for using this type of strategy. So hopefully this was useful, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to call me or email me or send up smoke flares or whatever it is you need to do to get my attention. Have a great day.